We're ready now to begin hearing directly from our cubes. The 2 morning segments called The Michigan Difference feature brief, engaging presentations that resemble TED Talks. I will tell you, we will not officially call them TED Talks because this is not a TED event. These cubes, though, have been preparing for several months, and I want to thank them for their hard work and willingness to bravely step into a new genre. As you'll see, these cubes take up compelling, timely issues. Leading off our featured presentations is a cube titled Novel Treatments for Infected Hemodialysis Catheters, which unites faculty and students from the medical school and the College of Engineering. All 3 faculty collaborators will be presenting today, Professors Michael Hung, Michael Solomon, and John Younger.
Thank you, Valerie, and good morning. My name is Michael Hung. I'm one of the nephrologists here at the University of Michigan. In this role, as a kidney specialist, I take care of patients that develop kidney failure and require hemodialysis. There are currently 400,000 patients in the US undergoing this life-sustaining therapy of hemodialysis, and unfortunately 100,000 more patients will join them this year. About 80% of these patients will require dialysis through a dialysis catheter, which is a piece of plastic, basically, that goes from the blood vessels out to the outside of the body to permit dialysis through the machine. Unfortunately, in these patients, infection can be a life-altering and life-threatening condition, and one that we struggle with not uncommonly. This is Kim's story.
I wouldn't wish this on anybody. The infection makes me feel tired. It's been ongoing for several months, so I have been very depressed. I've been angry. I'm so tired trying to fight these infections. It's really worn me out, not only physically, but mentally. It is not a simple thing to have your catheter replaced, and it's actually quite painful. And it's actually quite painful when they take it out. The day I have to have my catheter replaced is a very somber, quiet, sad day for me and the people who love me, because they see what I go through time and time again. I have had my catheter changed 7 times. I'm kind of running out of room. So I'm hoping that these infections will be cleared up and I won't have to have another catheter. The worst part of it is never being completely well, and I'm waiting for a transplant, and I do so well with transplant, and I don't have any underlying health issues like diabetes or anything like that. This is really holding up my life, and I just want my life back. I don't know how you do it. You just do, because you don't have a choice.
But what if you did have a choice? These are the kinds of questions that my colleagues and I have struggled with over at the medical center. And until the MCubed program came along, we didn't realize that other people were asking the same question spread out throughout the university. Through the MCubed program, I had an opportunity to become connected with Dr. Mike Solomon in the School of Chemical Engineering. Now, normally, Dr. Solomon and I wouldn't even be on the same page scientifically, but through MCubed, we managed to find common ground. While we have been looking at dialysis catheter infections from the patient inward, it turns out that his group has been looking at it from the catheter outward. Mike?
Mike has just mentioned how at a university as broad and diverse as Michigan, how a nephrologist and an engineer meet. They meet through MCubed. The next question is, what do a nephrologist and a chemical engineer talk about? We talk about the thing that's on the slide above. This is a biofilm. It's a community of bacteria that are responsible for the infection, and it's been grown on a model catheter surface. The object that you're seeing there is not the bacteria themselves, it's a collection of bacteria with substances that they themselves have produced to defend themselves against antibiotic. It's about a millimeter-sized object. Our aim is to get inside that and understand what is it that the bacteria are doing to create this environment for themselves. To do that, we take advantage of a number of different microscopy techniques that allow us to zoom in on different scales. So if we go into the scale of about 100 microns, you see that this biofilm forms a contiguous coating across the surface. There's some holes in it. And then you start to wonder what's actually going on inside the green regions, which is where the cells and all this other stuff actually are. When we zoom in on this scale, though, there's really nothing to see at this level of microscopy. But there's another level of microscopy you can do that will access the actual individual cells. If we go to that scale now, we now see the individual bacteria that are the exact organisms, and we see spaces in between them. These spaces are ways in which nutrients can get in and out. And it's really this structure, this protective structure, that makes these organisms so recalcitrant to all the treatment strategies. And so, but in the process of doing these purely scientific investigations, we stumbled upon this finding that there's a physical variable that does affect these bacteria. What you're seeing here on the top are microscopy images of the individual cells, and on the bottom are the same confocal micrographs that I spoke about just on the previous slide. And these are measurements at different temperatures. 37 degrees C is physiological temperatures, and the bacteria are very happy under these conditions. You can see in the top image that the cells are well formed. And in the bottom image, the green cells are alive and the red cells are dead. And so there's very few dead cells. When you then go to 45 degrees C, which is a good temperature, it's been shown to be a temperature which patients can tolerate in some kinds of cancer treatments, now the cells are a little bit less happy. They're no longer dividing. They're not as well formed in the top image. They're still alive, though. You can see that most of the cells are green. If we go to an even higher temperature at 60 degrees, now the cells are severely misshapen, and you can see that there's many dead ones. And so this was an unexpected scientific investigation that as a group, the three of us tried to take and see if we could move that in the direction of a treatment, which John will talk about.
Great. Thanks, Mike. So we'd like to think that we were the first person to think of this idea, but we were not. And so in 1862, Louis Pasteur in Paris said, you know what, this is actually really useful. It turns out, though, that that particular idea took a long time to penetrate daily life. And it really wasn't until the beginning of the 20th century where engineers figured out a way to heat materials in such a way that they were hot enough to kill bacteria, but not hot enough to ruin the thing that the bacteria were in. And this is the problem that we're facing today. How do you get a device warm enough so that bacteria that are contaminating it can be harmed, but everything else around that device is not harmed? It's one thing to do this in a gallon of milk. It's another thing to go to a patient like Kim and say, we're going to take this catheter, which is sitting 1 inch above your heart, and we're going to cook it for a little while. And that's really the technical question that we're trying to address at this point. We're heartened to a degree because there is already some work in this area that's being done in cancer. So in some cancer treatments, there are backup strategies that involve very sophisticated ways of generating high temperatures inside of tumors during chemotherapy. And we want to commandeer this strategy for the problem of catheter infection. And so to do that, we have to start working back towards the bedside from the bench. And we know the temperature targets that we have to hit. We now need to figure out technologies that will let us take a catheter and get it to that temperature safely. And that involves building things that look like catheters inside of bodies. And this is a typical model system that we use. This is a pipe that has a catheter in it. The pipe is set up so that it behaves in a temperature way and in a flow way like a large blood vessel in a patient's body. And what we're doing now is we're teaching computers how to heat that catheter safely to monitor the temperature in such a way that ultimately the catheter can get hot, but everything else around it cannot. So it's been a very busy year for the team. We have some accomplishments that we'd like to talk to you about so far. We think most importantly, the first PhD earned in this program was done by Leo Pavlovsky just this autumn. Leo has really internalized the problems that we're talking about and has gone to Stryker in New Jersey now and is working on artificial hips and artificial joints and on issues related to polymers and polymer contamination in that field. And so we're very proud of Leo. We are planning our first human tolerability studies for later this autumn. We have started to build the safety strategies by which we can go to patients and start to heat devices in a way that we can monitor how they'll tolerate that, and that's the plan for this fall. And then lastly, we've managed to sustain a little bit more funding for this project. So at the end of the summer this year, we were afforded $2.4 million from the NIH to try to take this from now to 2019 to the point where it can go to clinical trials. We want to thank the team that actually did all the heavy lifting for this, Rachel Sturdivant and Ian Richardson, who have been doing most of the work related to modeling the catheters, to Leo, Elizabeth, and Mahesh, who have done a lot of work on understanding the biophysics and the engineering features of what's otherwise a really biological phenomenon. And we certainly want to thank Kim. Her transplant is still on hold, but we remain very optimistic that this is going to be solved. We would love to be the ones that solve it for her, but however it gets solved, we're hopeful that this year will be the year that she gets her transplant. And then lastly, we just want to thank MCubed for the opportunity to do this really unusual work. I've been here for 20 years, and the opportunity to just come together in this unstructured but very productive way, it's been once in a career for us. And I think the entire team is very thankful for the university for offering the opportunity. So thank you very much.